Hello and welcome. So I've recently made a few pebbly fidgets. So this is a nice and easy project that I think other people might like to do. Um, I don't know if my mic will pick up the noise that this is making or not. Um, if not, I will add another bit of video in here so you can hear them properly. This is great for any yarn weight, really. The hook will depend on the weight of yarn that you're using. I'm using this Pebble Haze Prince DK yarn and a 3.5, I can't see that because of the light, 3.5mm hook. And the filling is 8mm beads. You want it to be fairly tight so that the beads don't pop out as you're playing with it, because the last thing you want is for them to sort of pop out and go all over the place. So to start off, you'll need to use a magic circle. You can use other methods, but this is how I'm doing it. This tutorial is how I'm making them. So wrap the yarn around your fingers. I'm just doing like a single loop magic circle. Put your hook under the loop here and grab that working yarn and pull it under and round. Then grab that yarn again and pull it through. So now I've got my magic circle, and I'm going to do 6 single crochets into there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to use a stitch marker to mark the first stitch in every round, because I'm going to make this in a spiral rather than slip stitching to the first stitch in every round, so that it makes a nice smooth transition around it as you go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that will be the first one. Now I'm going to pull that tight. I'm going to deal with this tail end in a bit, but I'm not going to wait until the end to do it, because I won't be able to access it, because this will be a closed ball basically. So now in that first stitch, I know the irony, I've just put the stitch marker in and I'm going to have to move it in a moment, but it means that I'm not going to miss anything. So now I'm going to put my hook in the first stitch. This is always a bit tricky. Don't know about for anyone else, but I always find it's a little bit tricky to get in the first one, because it always seems to be a little bit tight. There we go. So single crochet here, and now I'm going to take that marker out and move it. So this second round, we're going to do 2 single crochets in every stitch of the round before, so that we end up with 12 stitches. So I've done 1 in there, so I'm going to do my second. Not a second stitch, I'm doing a 1 and 2, and the third stitch, 1 and 2, oh, nearly, 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2. Now, if I've done this right, I should have 12 stitches. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Pull that a little bit tighter again. I don't want to pull too hard though, because I don't want to snap the yarn. So now round 3, I'm still doing 6 extra stitches per round, but instead of doing 2 stitches in every stitch, I do a single crochet and then 2 single crochets in the next one. So I'll do my first single crochet and then move my marker. And then I'm going to do 2 in this second stitch. And 1 and 2. You do that 6 times around 1 stitch in 1, 2 stitches in the next. 1 and 2, 1, 2, 1 and 2. That should be 18 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. The next round, similarly, we're still doing an increase of 6 stitches. So now instead of doing 1 single crochet and then an increase, I'm doing 2 single crochets and then an increase. So I've got 1, 2, 1, 2 in the same stitch. Again, repeating that 6 times as we go around. 2 single crochets and then 2 single crochets. The wording can get a little bit confusing sometimes, and I have got caught off camera, so bear with me while I untangle my working yarn there. I'm just going to turn that around and move it actually, because that means it's not going to get snagged. So where were we? So I'm going to have a look. I've got 1, 2 and 2 together, so that means I'm doing 2 single crochets, 2 single crochets. As you work this, you'll see what I mean. So you do 1, 1 and then 2. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now on this round you should have 24 stitches. So I'm not going to count all of them, but you can see it's making a nice little sort of hexagon shape now. So this is because I'm working the increases in the same place everywhere we go as they go. I'm going to see. Can I zoom in? Will it focus? Probably not. Here we are. So just use my scissors to point a little bit easier. So we can see this increase here is in this increase, which is in this increase. So if you wanted something that looks perfectly circular, you would place the increases in various different places. But because I quite like the hexagonal look, I'm placing them in the same ones every time. So if you're making something like this and you want these increases and you don't want to have to count as you're going round, all you do is do a single crochet in any stitch where it's not 2 in the same one, and then where it is 2 in the same one, you do 2 there. So this is the stitch over the top of the 2 together, so that's where you would put your 2 stitches. I hope that makes sense. So now going on to round 5, replacing my stitch marker so I don't lose my so now we're doing first 3 are just 1 in each, and now you can see where I've got those 2 stitches, and that's the stitch over the top of those 2, so that's where I'm working those 2 stitches. Find as I go round, it helps me to count out the number of stitches per section. So if I know it's 3 stitches and 2 together, I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that kind of helps me keep track of where I am to make sure I'm on the right path. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I know 4 and 5 are together, and then I go back to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is the 6th round, and this is the last one where we're doing any increases. So this, similar to the first round, yeah, 3, 4, and then 5 and 6 are in there in that increase. So when I finish this round, I should have 36 stitches. Sorry, I'm losing my yarn off camera. Very professional of me. I'm going to pause there. In fact, so I've done all my 6 rounds there. We've got a flat-ish hexagon, and this end I'm going to sort out now because I won't be able to access it when we get to the end because it will be a closed shape. So I'm going to get my needle. Just lock that stitch in so it's not going to go anywhere. I don't know if this is a crocheting thing or a sewing thing or something, but I learnt this a long time ago. If you do make a loop and then the bit that's not moving, so if I pull that slightly, that's where it's moving. This leg that's not moving, I'm going to wrap the yarn around twice or loop into it twice and then pull that down. I suppose it's probably a fisherman's thing really, or a sailing knot type situation, but that gives a nice solid knot so it's not going anywhere. And then I'm going to weave the end in a couple of times just to make sure it's not going anywhere. I'm hoping that with use it will kind of felt itself down in place after a while, because this is something that's going to be messed about with, moved around and that sort of thing, and not in a clothing way where it's not kind of being rubbed against, it's just moving. So I'm sort of hoping, like I said, that it will almost felt itself and that won't come undone, but it shouldn't come undone anyway because it's a magic circle. I've locked it in place and I've weaved it sort of back and forth a little bit as well, so it should be quite solid. So the next 3 rounds, you're just doing a single crochet in every stitch. So I will probably do these rows off camera just so it's not super boring, or if I do film it, I'll skip through it a little bit. But yes, you just do 3 rows with a single crochet in every single one.
One eternity later.
Okay, so I am back, and I did misspeak before, or I was wrong before. It's actually 2 rounds, not 3. While you're doing it, if you get a little bit lost, if you've not sort of made a note anywhere of which round you're on, you can figure out how many rounds of single crochet you've done if you find one of your increases, like this one here is 2 stitches in one, and then you can see the next 2 rows have no increases in them. So we know where we are. So now we're going to begin the decreases. So for the decrease, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, I think, here, so you can see it a bit better. So for the decrease, Sometimes when you're doing crochet, you can just skip a stitch and move to the next one, but I'm not going to skip it because if you do, it can leave a bit more of a hole and can be a bit more awkward when you've got something in there. It can look a bit untidy and it can also let things out if you've got a filling. So I can't remember where I learnt this or how long ago, but it was quite a while ago. But basically, you're sort of doing single crochet in 2 stitches at once. So I'm going into the first stitch and pulling a loop through, and then I'm going into the second stitch and pulling another loop through. So I've now got 3 loops on my crochet hook. So now I'm going to grab the yarn and pull through all 3. So now I have 2 stitches made into 1 stitch. And now I'm going to put my marker in there so I don't lose it. So on this round, we're going from 36 stitches down to 30. So it's a decrease stitch and then 4 single crochets afterwards. So I've done my decrease and now do 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now I'm going to do another decrease. So I'll go into the first stitch and grab a loop, into the second stitch and grab a loop, then grab the yarn and through all 3 loops. And now 4 single crochets. In 1, in 2, and through all 3. And then do another 4 single crochet. So all of these things you're basically repeating 6 times because that's how many stitches we started with, and we're doing 6 increases per round. So if you get lost, you've not got far to go because there's only 6 repeats. We're 2 together, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm doing a decrease again. Let's decrease there. 1, 2, 1. So the next round is another round of decreases. So I'm going to take that stitch marker out. Again, we're going in 1, in 2, and then through all 3. Pop the marker in there. So now we're reducing by 6 again. So we're going from 30 to 24. So this time it's 1 decrease and then 3 stitches, 1 in each again. 1, 2, 3. If you're very good at counting as you go, you can almost do it without having the stitch marker in. I'm not quite at that point yet, or I am as long as I can be completely uninterrupted and not distract myself. And I distracted myself there. I went wrong on that. So I've got 1, 1, 2, 3. See, I was talking instead of counting, and that put me off. It's my own fault, really. 1, 2, 3. I suppose it gets easier as there are smaller number of single stitches because you don't have to think too far ahead. I find that anything that's like up to 3 can be quite easy to keep track of. Anything after that, and I have to concentrate a little bit harder. Although I kind of proved myself wrong by getting that one wrong before. I will also try and put a written version of this pattern in the description. So if you want to have something to refer back to, you can do. Or I might put it as a shared document on Google or something, so it's easy to access. So that was round 11. Now round 12, more decreases again. So in that first stitch, and then that second stitch, and through all 3, popping that stitch marker back on. So now again, reducing by 6, this is going from 24 to 18. So we'll do 2 together and then 2 single crochets in the next 2 stitches, or 1 single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. And then that will bring us to the end with 18. See, this is what I mean by up to 3, it's a bit easier to look at it and just sort of do it without having to count too much. Almost feel like Baldric in Blackadder when he's counting beans. I go, there's one, and there's another one.
If I have 2 beans, and then I add 2 more beans, what do I have? Some beans.
And that's how I sort of count things when it's below a certain number. So the next one, ooh, getting stuck there. We're just doing 1 decrease and 1 single crochet 6 times, so that we'll then have 12 stitches, and then we will pause to put our filling inside. So we go 1, 2, all the way through. Oh, I'm a poet. So there's a first stitch. At this point, you probably could do it without having the stitch in if you're happy to count as you go round, but just for the sake of not losing my place, I'm going to continue using the stitch marker for the moment. One, two together. This will be a little bit awkward on the visuals. I do apologise, just because it's getting a little bit tight in there, and I'm having to sort of stick my finger in, and crocheting at this angle is also difficult because it's different from where you would normally hold things. If I held this where I'd normally hold it, you wouldn't be able to see anything at all because I'm holding it very close to my chest. There's our last decrease of this round. 1. So this is where I'm going to pause and put the filling in. So just pop this down for a moment. I'm very much the kind of person that keeps things that might be handy. So anytime I get anything in a little organza drawstring bag, I tend to keep them. They don't always come in handy, but for this purpose they do. What I did was, so that I don't have to try and count out the beads every time I need to use them, because I know that all the beads I've got at the moment are earmarked for this, I used a little set of scales and just weighed out the amount of beads that I would need. So I did one, put the beads in, took them out, weighed them, and then I now know how much I need for each one. So then I've weighed them out and put them in little organza bags, just to make my life a little bit easier. Right, so I'm going to get awkward, and I'm going to be annoyed if I spill them everywhere. Ooh.
Get in there!
Maybe let's be sensible about this and just put them in like this. These are just some cheap 8mm beads that I got online. You can probably get beads in haberdashers, all sorts of places, depending on your price point. You don't have to spend an awful lot. The first few of these I made with beads that I had left over from other projects, and of course, predictably, I decided I wanted to make a lot more, so I had to buy more beads. But now the beads are all in there. Got a bit of a nice crunch. No idea if you can hear this or not on the microphone. But we've got one more round we need to do before we properly close it. So I'm going to do 2 together. Now, this is also where it gets a bit tricky, because the beads do try and jump out whilst you're crocheting around the hole. So just keep an eye out on them, push them down when they start trying to come up. Might be a bit fiddly, but you will manage it. This is me telling myself that rather than you, I think. And then the last one, I think. Oh no, two more. Last one, like fake last one. Yeah. So now I'll just pop that stitch marker out so it's not in the way. I'm going to cut a nice length here. Can't see that. Cut that nice length there. So we've got a bit of room to work with, because what we're going to do is basically cinch that closed. I'm going to come a little bit closer. So we'll pop this on a needle. And now I'm going to go into each of those 6 stitches from the outside in. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to pull it closed so we've got a nice tight closing on it so that things aren't popping out all over the place. I'm going to do that same locking stitch that I did before. Oops, unstitch there. And go through once and twice. Pull it as tight as I can. And now that is a little bit ugly. So I'm going to go in like that. Just pull it through the middle of that hole to kind of disguise it a little bit. And I'm going to do a bit of a weave. So help if I do that on camera. I'll go through a few stitches, come back a little bit. And now what I like to do is also pull the weave tail through the body of the thing so that I can leave a little bit of a tail on the inside. Again, my hope, like with the beginning bit, is that it will sort of felt itself over time. And that's it. That's my finished pebble fidget. So thank you for joining me. I hope you give this a go, and if you do, that you're successful. If you would like to find me elsewhere, there is a link down in the doobly-doo to my link tree. And if you don't want to make one, but you would like, well, any of these really, I've made quite a few, send me a message and you can have one for free, because I'm just making things for the sake of making them. And if people want stuff for free, they can have them.